Fellas, with the end of the UFC year coming up, we only have a couple of events left. It's time to make official predictions for who will be the champion of every single division by the end of 2025. Now, obviously, this is a hard list to make because there's so many variables to take into account. There's scheduling, injuries, Dana White privilege, retirements, but regardless, we're going to do the best we can to make this as accurate as possible. Now, we're going to start with the big dogs per usual. Heavyweight right now, the champion is Jon Jones and the interim champion is Tom Aspinall. My prediction for the champion by the end of 2025 will be Tom Aspinall grabbing the undisputed belt finally. Now, heavyweight's a tough division to gauge because of the whole Jon Jones situation. Is he going to retire? Is he going to fight Stipe? Is he going to fight Aspinall? None of us really know. But my prediction is he's going to fight Stipe Miocic, dominate him 49-46 decision, and then retire, ride off into the sunset, and call it a career. And then immediately following Jon Jones dropping his gloves in Madison Square Garden, Dana White's going to go to the press conference, upgrade Tom Aspinall from interim champion to undisputed champion, and then in 2025, we're going to see him fight some combination of Cyril Gane, maybe Jailton Almeida, and Alexander Volkov. Now, all three of those guys are good fighters. I actually think heavyweight right now is the best it's been in years, but they are not on the same level as Tom Aspinall. I think he knocks all three of them out in the first 3 rounds. But I do want to mention the fact that if Jon Jones decides not to retire and he wants to defend his belt versus Tom Aspinall, I feel like this is kind of an unpopular take, but I think he would actually beat Tom Aspinall. If I've learned one thing as a fan of MMA, it's that you do not make money betting against Jon Jones. And every single time there's a potential fight with somebody, everybody's always saying, this is the guy who's finally going to beat Jon Jones. They said it about Cyril Gane, they said it about Francis Ngannou, and now they're saying it about Tom Aspinall as well. And it could be true. There is a guy to beat everyone, and Jon Jones is getting up there in age. He's out of his prime, and Tom Aspinall is really in his prime and maybe the best heavyweight we've ever seen. But me personally, I just cannot bet against Jon Jones. I think he'd wrestle his way to a 48-47 decision. So I take Jon Jones to beat Tom Aspinall, but because of the fact that I think Jon Jones is going to retire, I predict Tom Aspinall to be the champion by the end of 2025. Now we move down to light heavyweight where our champion is Alex Poatan Pereira. This guy has taken the UFC world by storm. In the matter of just a couple years, he's become one of the greatest fighters of all time. But with that being said, he is very, very vulnerable. Now, the first most obvious guy that everyone's going to bring up is Nurmagomedov Ankalaev. Because of the wrestling threat, people think he's going to take down Alex Pereira and just sit on him for 5 rounds and ride his way to a decision. And while that is definitely possible, I think people need to reconsider because he's fighting Alexander Rakic, who I think will actually beat him. Outside of Alex Pereira, Alexander Rakic is the cleanest, most technical, precise striker at 205, and I think he is being severely underrated, and he will upset Nurmagomedov Ankalaev. Now, Alex Pereira is getting up there in age, and he's also voiced his wanting to have more rest because he's been so active, so I think he will only fight 1 or 2 times in 2025, one of those being against Alexander Rakic because I predict him to beat Nurmagomedov Ankalaev. And it's hard to say who the other defense will be against. It could be Nurmagomedov Ankalaev, but after coming off a loss, is he going to be back in the title picture that quickly? I'm not sure. So while Nurmagomedov Ankalaev may be the guy to beat Alex Pereira, I don't know if he'll have the opportunity to fight him. So with that being said, I think the safest pick for the champion by the end of 2025 is Poatan. I think he beats Alexander Rakic. I think he might lose to Nurmagomedov Ankalaev. It's a 50-50 fight, but I don't even know if that fight will happen. So if I'm just running through all the possible scenarios, I think the most scenarios lead to the fact that Alex Pereira will be your champion by the end of 2025 at light heavyweight. Now we move down to middleweight where Dricus du Plessis somehow has become your champion at 185 despite having the weirdest technique I've ever seen, but he has really transformed himself into one of the best fighters in the whole UFC. But I do not think he will be the champion by the end of 2025. You may be thinking, oh, he's going to pick Sean Strickland. And while I did actually have Sean Strickland winning on the scorecards in that first fight, in my opinion, I'm predicting Dricus du Plessis to improve and actually beat him more soundly this time. So maybe your next thought is surely he's going to pick Robert Whittaker or Israel Adesanya, both veterans in the division. They could easily grab the belt back, but I'm not picking them either, because I am picking Hamza Borz Chimaev to be your middleweight champion by the end of 2025. Now, if you guys know me, you know I think Hamza Chimaev at this point is actually severely underrated. I actually even made a whole video about it if you want to watch it. But regardless, I think he's going to dog walk Robert Whittaker. I think he's going to dog walk Dricus du Plessis. Maybe dog walk is a little far, but I think he's going to beat these guys soundly. These generational kind of prospects always become champion. I think Hamza Chimaev is undoubtedly a top 3 grappler in the UFC, and I think he's number 1. This guy is going to be a champion. If I could put money on any single guy who's not a champion right now to become a champion, I'm going with Hamza Chimaev. He will be your middleweight champion by the end of 2025. Book it. And now we move down to welterweight where once again, somehow Bilal Muhammad has become champion. There are just so many guys who are champions right now that I can't actually believe they became champion. But this is another guy who will not hold his belt for long. And that's because he's got the boogeyman in his division who he's actually fighting next. Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to be your champion. He's going to finish Bilal Muhammad and become one of the most dominant champions in the UFC. I could see it. Shavkat's better on the feet. He's a better grappler. He's got more physicality. Really the only things Bilal Muhammad has going for him is fight IQ, striking defense, and maybe cardio. But I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is way too explosive of a finisher. He's one of those guys like Hamza Chimaev where you just watch him fight and the eye test tells you this guy is going to become champion, and he will. 170-pound champion by the end of 2025. Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, lightweight, I'm not going to think too hard about this one. The safe bet is Islam Makhachev. This guy is probably the best fighter in the UFC, according to most people. Amazing grappling. He's become an amazing striker. Now, his upcoming fight with Arman Tsarukyan, I think actually will give him some problems. I think it will be a close fight. Arman Tsarukyan is a stud. But I think Islam's just the better version of him. It's going to look similar to their first fight. I think the grappling exchanges will kind of nullify and it'll be mostly played out on the feet, where Islam is better. Now, there is a chance that a guy like Charles Oliveira could catch an Islam Makhachev in some submission or with his power. But Islam showed he was the better fighter. This guy's going to be your lightweight champion and maybe even welterweight champion if he decides to move up by the end of 2025. Now, featherweight, once again, if you know anything about me, you know who I am picking. Ilia Topuria, the best fighter in the UFC and future top 10 fighter of all time, will 100% be the featherweight champion by the end of 2025. This guy is going to be #1 pound for pound. He is going to set the record for most featherweight title defenses ever, and I could even see Ilia Topuria becoming the lightweight champion one day. I am that high on him. He is one of the best strikers in the UFC, if not the best striker, and he's also a grappler at heart, having more submissions than KOs. This guy's so well-rounded. He is a sneak peek into the future of what future UFC fighters will look like. Now, that being said, even though I am extremely high on Ilia Topuria, I'm not going to sit here and deny the fact that his road over the next couple of years is going to be very tough and very dangerous. He's got guys like Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, Movsar Evloev, Diego Lopez, Aljamain Sterling. All these guys are studs in his division. The biggest immediate threat is clearly Max Bless Holloway. This guy's hitting a second prime in his career, and I would not be that shocked if he were able to beat Ilia Topuria. But I think Topuria is better on the feet. He's better on the ground. He's better everywhere. He's in his prime. He's younger, hungrier, more explosive. He's going to beat Max Holloway. Then after that, Alexander Volkanovski is going to come back. Old man Volkanovski is going to get his soul snatched again. He's going to have his career officially ended by Ilia Topuria. I kind of feel bad for him. Then after that, we get into guys like Diego Lopez, Aljamain Sterling, Movsar Evloev. These guys are all studs, but not good enough to beat Ilia Topuria, in my opinion. Aljo's good enough on the ground, but he is getting pieced up badly on the feet by Ilia Topuria. Movsar Evloev is just kind of good everywhere, but not explosive enough to deal with Ilia Topuria's power. The most interesting one is Diego Lopez because he's young and his finishing ability is uncanny. It reminds me a lot of Charles Oliveira. But he is not technical and precise enough. He would have to catch Ilia Topuria, which is very possible, but he's not going to beat this guy round after round after round. I think if they fight again 5 years in the future, we could have a conversation about maybe Diego Lopez has improved his technique and he's ready for Ilia Topuria, but as of right now, I just do not think he's ready. So with all that being said, by the end of 2025, your featherweight champion will be Ilia El Matador Topuria. Now we move down to 135, where Merab, the machine Dvalishvili, is your champion at bantamweight, and despite what a lot of people are predicting, I think Merab is going to be a long-term champion. He's going to keep his belt at 135, and the Georgians at 135 and 145 are both going to have long reigns as champions. The toughest test for him is his upcoming one versus Umar Nurmagomedov. That guy is an absolute stud. What he did to Corey Sandhagen was super impressive. But until I see someone come up with a solution for Merab's ungodly cardio, the best cardio in UFC history, by the way, I'm not picking against him. And then after Umar, which will be Merab's toughest test, we have Sean O'Malley, who Merab already beat. We have Peter Yan, who Merab already dominated. We have Corey Sandhagen, who I don't think his grappling is good enough to compete with Merab. And then maybe Davison Figueiredo could give him some issues. That would be an interesting fight, but I think it's too early to guess on that. So I think this Umar versus Merab is like a 60-40 fight in favor of Merab. So I will be picking Merab, and the guys after that, I don't think we'll give him too much trouble. Merab will be your bantamweight champion by the end of 2025. And then finally, last and probably least, we have Flyweight, where Alex Pantoja is your current champion. And I am picking a sneaky guy, Tatsuro Taira, to be the champion by the end of 2025. Right now, he sits at number 5 in the rankings, but he is only 24 years old. He is super explosive. He is undefeated. This guy is destined to be a champion at 125. Pantoja is great, but that reliance on his chin is going to give way eventually, and I think it will be against Tatsuro Taira. I think he's 1 or 2 fights away from the championship, so I think he'll probably be fighting for the belt November, December 2025, where he will win, and he will be your champion. So that just about wraps it up. We have Tatsuro Taira, Merab Dvalishvili, Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Hamza Chimaev, Alex Pereira, and Tom Aspinall as your champions by the end of 2025. Let me know what you guys agree and disagree with, and thank you for watching.